Mike Franken, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good to be here.
What made you decide to run for office?
Oh, well, it's not a single decision that just pops in. I don't believe anybody ought to have a craven desire to be a senator, or to be a mayor, or even a county supervisor or something. I think you need to weigh the situation in life and see, do you have the skill group, the experience, the threshold to do such a thing? And do world affairs really dictate that? And then people who know more about the job than you ever do at that point, especially if you've never been a senator before, obviously, they need to encourage you and say, you know what, you have the background to make this work. And then, of course, you've got to have your spouse say yes. So in the shadow of January 6th, having served for almost 4 decades in military service, really supporting this nation and its ideals, democracy worldwide, the old oath, I support and defend the Constitution of the United States, all enemies, foreign and domestic. My sense is that we needed additional assistance in supporting democracy domestically. And I believe I have the skill group to answer that call.
Speak more to that, if you will. What do you feel has prepared you to serve as a senator?
Well, I think Iowa values, growing up in rural Sioux County, Iowa. Lebanon was my hometown, a town of about 50 people. 1/5 the population was in my family. I think the basic Iowa values are helpful. The church, school, work, sports, extracurricular activity, more work, getting along with the family in a small house with lots of kids, all of that is helpful to form the type of person you are. And good parents. Mom was a one-room schoolhouse teacher. Dad was at a small machine shop coming out of World War II. And that imprint, that opportunity in life, I think sets you up well. The good news is Iowa schools at the time were such that when you graduated well, you were in the 99th percentile of academic achievement. And consequently, the world was your opportunity. So from working in a slaughterhouse or working as a welder, which I was doing, I could do a lot of things. Go to law school, become a doctor. I went in the Navy and on a scholarship. So from enlisted to officer and spent a long time. In the capacity of that, seeing the world, living on 4 continents and all that, a broad perspective of where the United States is and should be in the world. The broad-shouldered democracy, the great experiment that is the leader of the free world. And that translated to many years in conflict, but also policy, strategy jobs, legislative affairs jobs in Washington, D.C. I was Obama's chief of legislative affairs in the department, and worked also in the Bush administration and in the Clinton administration. Worked actually for a senator as a military legislative fellow, and that was a fabulous experience on how things worked on the Hill. I was an engineer and a physics person, but veered wildly into policy issues. And that's what happens when you become a senior officer in the military. So I think all those things help. So I was apolitical most of my life. I was not a Democrat, I wasn't a Republican, I was an American. And I think that translates to be a good candidate today.
There are, of course, many big topics coming up ahead of the midterms. I'd like to touch on a few of them.
Sure.
Where do you stand on the issue of abortion?
Well, I view it as a rights issue for principally women, obviously, and that has an overabundance of men dictating what a woman ought to do. And I have in my life seen that women make really good decisions, and whether you're for abortion or against an actual abortion, it is the woman's choice in every situation. And what we don't need in life is a constitutional lawyer, Senator Grassley, or some official dictating to that healthcare provider, your spiritual advisor, your partner in life, or just yourself and what you ought to be doing. It's your decision in life. And in many times when we make this rather, in many cases, arbitrary line and when it becomes illegal, that's improper as well, because most of those late abortions that occur are because there's a malady with the fetus or the woman's life is at danger. And there again, this is not a situation where somebody else, the United States government, should be dictating this. A woman is making a choice, and she's probably had that baby named, the colors picked out, cards sent out, and when those situations happen, it's a heart-wrenching situation that need not be involved in government oversight.
Many Iowans are concerned about inflation, rising costs, the economy. What do you feel lawmakers can do to steer the economy?
Well, past decisions have fomented where we are today. We have sent much industry overseas. We've actually had our present serving individuals have given tax breaks to corporations to send their manufacturing overseas, strangely enough, compliments of the U.S. taxpayer. We therefore do not own the supply chain. It's dictated on other matters worldwide, transportation, et cetera, and pandemic. So we are somewhat beholden to those countries and for those corporations. Corporations have also taken the opportunity to bring in excessive profits. As you look across the great scape of of corporations, how many of them have record profit taking and have invested more on executive compensation, stock buybacks than they've done by encouraging their business climate, helping out the U.S. economy. And when you look at that through a clear lens, you kind of go, industry, are you helping or are you hurting? And the second thing is inflation's a consequence of not enough goods and services being chased by way too much cash. The Federal Reserve kept interest rates too low during the Trump administration and the Biden administration, and consequently flushed the economy with a lot of money. And besides that, the Trump administration put the kibosh on immigration. So that influx of visa holders and working individuals is not there like it used to be. So we have that drawn out, that desiccating of the workforce. And Iowa in particular is hurt by that. We have 70,000 some fewer adult workers today than we did before the pandemic. And at zero, in essence, 3.2% unemployment, we are at full employment. And there is no flexibility for additional workers unless we get on the stick. So we can introduce comprehensive immigration plans. And we should quit making this such a nasty partisan situation and go back to the bill, which was 2013, that was genuinely good. And it was torpedoed because of partisan politics. And in my world, if you want to be a good senator, you put people over politics and you put the country first.
You mentioned partisan issues. In your opinion, what does a senator really need to do to get work done?
Well, you got to get along with people. And there are some individuals who you will fundamentally never particularly like as individuals. But I've had a life of doing that. I have sat like this with warlords that would just as soon have my head on a spike, but you work with them. And for the betterment of the situation, you work to the best of your ability. You've got to be compromising. There is such a thing as compromise. Without compromise, things become detrimental for any party who the other party passes legislation over. And what I learned working for a very famous guy by the name of Ted Kennedy, that the clear wins, the 100% wins, are to be careful with that, because that means the other party has had a 100% loss. And you should always gravitate to something which is a compromise. And you move the needle, poco a poco, as we say, little by little, so that iteratively you bring society, you bring culture in line with the political climate, and you work it across party lines, across geographic lines, across what's important to various senators. And I think I can do that. I come as a senator completely unowned by any industry, completely unowned by a political action committee, even a political party. I'm the first candidate we've had in this state in decades who was not chosen by Washington, D.C. I was chosen by the citizens of Iowa. And I think that's rather notable.
If you were to be elected, what are some of the issues you'd like to make sure you worked on?
How long is our program? Let's see here. I think we need a comprehensive immigration plan. Yes, we do. I mean, Iowa is, our future is contingent on people your age coming back, making their lives here, and thank you for that. The 35-year-olds considering that this is in a place where they want to build their lives, their business, and their families, and even the 65-year-olds to, hey, we're going to go back to Iowa because we have a great quality of life, we love the people there, and it's our place, and we have a heartfelt connection to it. So we need to do this for the state of Iowa. And that whole quality of life thing in the state of Iowa, from a more sustainable, regenerative energy grid to a vast expanse of better businesses, such as bringing in a lot of money from the CHIPS Act, to education. I'm a victim of public schools in the state of Iowa, 99th in the achievement in the nation, and we can do anything. We used to be known as the education state. I remember this. We used to proudly say, I went to Iowa to a high school, and Iowa to a college, etc. And people would say, oh, wow, you're highbrow. You're well educated. You're really situationally based. And that has rather walked away from us because we haven't brought in leadership where education is the thing in life. And I would be that person. The environment. Iowa has an opportunity to reconstruct agriculture with the assistance and high regard for agriculture, which is my roots, to be value added and make this state by 2045-ish be net negative in carbon. And in a carbon tax environment, that will change the environment of Iowa, perhaps more so than any other business initiative. Internationally, we should repeal the AUMF, which really lets Congress off the hook for international conflict, and put the onus now on Congress. And they have been ducking this for 20 years, mostly because of political situations, or perhaps an element of cowardness and not knowing the world around them. And that would be my fort of highest regard. And I think I'd be value added for this nation to ensure that what we do internationally reflects positively here in Iowa.
In speaking to Iowans and traveling, what do you feel is the most important thing you learned from the people you've talked to?
Well, let me first say what's the most important thing that I've drawn from Iowans, and that is the divisiveness that exists in the state today, compliments of what I consider poor political leadership that causes small town Iowa, and the smaller you go, the more caustic it becomes, because you don't have a dilution factor. Your friends network is doing the splits. They're either pro-Dem or pro-Republican. And consequently, the coffee clutch, the bowling league, the church pew, all becomes awkward. And we can't have that as a nation. We've got to get along. And there's much more that brings us together. But we need leadership to do that. And we desperately lack leadership. And it's the second, I think, most fundamental quality for a political person. The first being empathy, sympathy, caring about other people. You know, the old adage that you care as much for those you've never met as those you know. The second issue is that breaking up and not being so caustic with political environment. We need to come together. So.
Is there anything else you would like Iowans to know about you ahead of the election?
Well, we are hard at it. We've got 24 days, not that I'm counting. We will be in a community near you. I most heartfeltly plead that if you're an independent, Republican, etc., please come by and talk. And we take all comers in our get-togethers, We advertise them widely, and we like to have a conversation. I will talk perhaps for a little too long, which is my tendency, but then I will also do questions and answered. And I'm not no curated audience. I would like them to know that my future, I won't be doing the bidding of anybody except for theirs. And the basic watchwords of this campaign: country over party, people over politics. And this is what I'll subscribe to. And I think we're a crowd pleaser. I think I'm reflective of what they need. I come from Northwest Iowa, rural roots, got a broad perspective, retired Vice Admiral, and a long history of service to this nation, and a big sigh and a swallow, and I'm ready to do more. And I'm looking forward to serving them to the best of my capacity.
Thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure, Rebecca. Thank you. Nice of you.